This video is an introduction to the 4820 control panel box, the project enclosure, and the machined aluminum panel that you can use for your own projects. This also will show you how to install the circuit board into the finished panel. First, you'll need to remove the outer wrapping paper, and you will need to remove the two plastic frames surrounding the front and the rear panel. Now, to do so, use something such as a small flat steel ruler or a file or a small flat screwdriver. What you want to do is pry the opening sides up just a little bit, just enough to pop the corners off from the two corners on the one side and also the two corners on the other side. Now once you do that and you take the outer frame off, just flex it a little bit, it should come off easily. Now you have access to the 4 screws. Use a small Phillips screwdriver to remove the front panel screws. Then you should be able to lift the panel and the plate out all in one piece. Now there are 2 plates for this. One you're going to need for the back panel, which you can machine to your own custom power and input-output connections, and the identical panel for the front is not needed, so you can recycle it or use it for another project. Next, you're going to install the 4820 panel into the machined plate. Before you do that though, it's best to set the color keycaps to the colors that you want, so you don't have to remove the board later on. Another step you should do before installing the circuit board is to look at the jumpers. There is 3 jumpers on there that are normally installed when the product is shipped. You may want to cut one or all of them depending on your circuit if you're using multiplexed wiring. There are 4 studs on the back of the panel and 8 nuts to go on top of them. Now what you should do is you should take 4 of the nuts off and use the other 4, set them to a gap of about 7 millimeters between the panel and the nut. This will hold the circuit board at the right distance to the front panel. After you do that, it's time to put the panel in place. Slip it in carefully, making sure that all the LEDs go through the hole and are lined up properly. Let the board seat fully, and when you're done you can check it. There should be a gap of about 8 millimeters between the front panel and the circuit board. Now it's a good time to attach the 4 small nuts onto the back of the studs, holding the circuit board in place. Now when you do this, take my advice and do this well over your workbench. Do not do it over your lap, because these very small nuts have an unusually high gravitational effect and like to fall on the floor, and I guess with the rotation of the earth, likes to roll under the bench. Where under my workbench I have a hardware store full of assorted washers, nuts, and bolts. So tighten these 4 nuts down. Give them a little snug, but not too tight because you don't want to damage or strip these studs. Use a 5 millimeter wrench or an adjustable wrench. When the circuit board is in place, take a look at the front and make sure all the switches will click smoothly and make sure the knobs can be turned. At this time, you may want to connect your electronics before sliding it into the box. Now there are 2 plastic frames for the front. One has a beveled outer edge. The other one has all the holes for the screws and 2 holes on the side. Look at the holes on the side and place it onto the extrusion, and you'll notice on the sides of the holes facing outwards there is cutouts. Once you put that in place, you should be able to drop the panel and it should fall right inside the frame. Now if you happen to have it on backwards and put the panel on, you'll notice that it won't really fall into the frame and it'll just kind of sit on top. That's your clue that it's on backwards. So, having it on right, you put the panel into the frame, and now you take your 4 screws using a small Phillips screwdriver and screw that into place. Now remember to screw straight. Don't let it strip, because you're taking a steel screw into an aluminum and you don't want to strip the box. Once you have all 4 in place, Your circuit board should be well mounted and centered. And now you can slip on the outer frame. The beveled inner edges should show you which side goes on facing up. So just slip it around all four sides. It will snap into place. Line it up and give it one good solid push, and it should snap tight all around all four sides. And there you go. You have the panel installed. Now, if you really want it to look nice, this is time to put on some knobs. I suggest using any knob you can find. Do not use a knob with a diameter larger than about 6 or 7/10 of an inch. Otherwise, the knobs will be too close to each other. So the first thing you want to do, if you want the knobs with an indicator lined up in the standard 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock positions with 12 o'clock in the center of its travel, look for the two small notches on the shafts of the pots and turn them to the 12 o'clock position. Then drop your knob on top of there. Lift it up about 2 millimeters from the front panel just to make sure that you don't have it scraping and you get a good clean turn. And using a 2 millimeter hex driver, twist the nut into the knob to tighten it. Do not over tighten it because you are turning the steel nut into the plastic and you don't want to tear up the plastic. Now do the same thing for the other knob. When you're done, a quick check to make sure that you have the angles correct. Should go from 7 o'clock all the way down to all the way up to about 5 o'clock position when it's fully turned clockwise. And there you have a finished 4820 control panel and enclosure. Ready for your electronics. Just throw it in the back there, hook it up, and you're in business.